With all the hype that is surrounding the new Serato SLAB MIDI controller that works for Serato Studio, it's fair to say that many people are comparing it to Akai's offering, which is the MPC Studio. Since I happen to own both of these, I think it's good to do a comparison video between the two. But I'm here to tell you this, it's not even close, not even by a little bit. So I want to start off the video by talking about the similarities between the two. They both are MIDI controllers. They both come with software. We'll talk about that more extensively a little later. They both have a 16-pad layout. More about that later too. They both have touch strips. They both have tiny screens. Let me know in the comment section if you like or dislike tiny screens. I'm curious. And they both have data wheels. And that's where all the similarities end. The rest of this video is about to get real nasty. Ugh. With that said, let's talk about the price point. Now, I want to point out the obvious thing and talk about Serato SLAB just coming out in December of 2025, while the MPC Studio came out about 4 years ago, meaning it came out in 2021. So there's no shock that SLAB costs $329, while the MPC Studio costs about $199 before tax. And if you're interested in either one of those things, well, the link will be in the description box. Hey, don't fault me for trying, at least. It does help support the channel. I'm just saying. So let's talk about the paths in between the two of these joints, man, for real, because there are some subtle differences between MPC Studio and SLAB. Now, for starters, I like the pads on the MPC Studio. They feel exactly like the MPC standalone units that I'm used to, while SLAB has its own kind of vibe and it's a little different because of how the velocity is configured. And you could just tell off top, they're both velocity sensitive. Of course, the MPC has the full level button, which makes it a little easier for you to land stuff. So, but you can tell they're both velocity sensitive. And that is great. Now, the other thing I want to point out, which is obvious because they both have touch strips, and the touch strip on the MPC Studio has this little light that emits, and you can see it right here. It also gives you a little bit more detail when you go into note repeat and stuff like that, like right on the screen here. You can see that it has a little bit of detail on that unit, and SLAB has these little bit of lights that when you mess around with stuff, and they both control different parameters depending on what you want to do. And when the touch strip was introduced on the MPC Studio, a lot of people were a little leery because it didn't have what everybody is used to, especially one thing I complained about during beta testing was it didn't have physical cue links, but you can control the cue links and stuff like that. While the touch strip on the SLAB, I didn't have anything that I didn't like or whatever, because, you know, you just had your different encoder modes, and you also have physical encoders right in front of you, so you can be able to adjust different things from the stem level and or different things as far as the deck parameters and the deck EQ. If I was to talk about the data wheels on both of these units, they both feel good. They both, you know, you can press down on the data wheel and change and maneuver in the software. Similarly, that's why they're similar at. I would say that the encoder on the SLAB is definitely a little bit more comfortable, if that is a thing, but they're both functional. The other thing that is quite noticeably different happens to be the transport controls, as the MPC has the play, start, play, stop, overdub, and record, while you can press record on SLAB and you can press play on SLAB. You would technically have different kind of functions, like shift and play would re-trigger and trigger whatever you have in your deck or in your scene. And with all due respect to both companies, because I enjoy them both, they both function how they should with their intentional DAWs or Groovebox software. Now let's actually talk about the software. And this is where things get nasty. This is where everybody's gonna fight in the comment section.
Hey, you getting real disrespectful. Don't try to disrespect me, man. That's a very complicated question.
Even though Serato's offering with SLAB and Serato Studio is probably by far one of the best DAWs that I've ever touched, it still needs a little bit of work in a couple of ways. Also, I'm fully aware that I'm comparing a MIDI controller and software that hasn't been around for quite a while in comparison to the MPC software, which has been out for over a decade, bruh. And that is kind of a hard comparison to make, but I'm still going to do so. And I have to point out the Captain Obvious thing. Serato Studio is much like Serato DJ, making it a whole lot easy for people to get into remixes and just making a beat from scratch really quickly. How quickly? Well, let me show you. So the first thing that I can do off top is if I wanted to add a sample, I would just go all the way to the right side of the screen, click on add sample, grab a folder, and you don't necessarily have to do it like this, but this is how I do things, and slap my sample right here. And it's not so much different in the MPC software. All I had to do here that's different is go right into the sample pool, slide the sample over, the sample appears right over here in the sample pool, and then I can drag it into, or I can click on it and then go into edit mode. And this is where it gets a little nasty. The MPC software has a fully editable screen. I'm using editable as a screen, but it has a fully editable screen where I can do different things like discard, delete, extract, and reverse, normalize, etc., making it easy and accessible to, you know, chop up a sample or whatnot, or just do something with audio. While in something like Serato Studio, you would have to do a little bit more. I mean, off top, I still have my chops because you can automatically chop stuff up immediately, and you can select all your chops and all this other stuff. Being able to edit stuff isn't as easy as you might think. However, there is a solution for that. You can get this free software called Audacity, download it, and then you can edit any sample the way you want, which I have to address another elephant in the room. Can you record samples into Serato Studio? And as far as I know, the answer is no, but feel free to leave a comment below and correct me if I'm wrong. And I must add this little tidbit. It is very easy to record and edit in Audacity, so that's what I recommend. But I have to be a little bit of a contrarian and give some pushback because it's very simple to record your own sample into the MPC Studio software, as simple as this right here. As you can see, it's record. You can even see that I'm monitoring my vocals right here, and you can switch your inputs on your own free will to sample anything that you want. But again, Audacity exists, bruh. And that's where everybody that's a part of the MPC community will agree with me on this. Using the MPC software is pretty counterintuitive. In my opinion, the MPC software has always been a hot mess since day zero. If you were a new user, people will probably wonder how to chop a sample, even though it is right here, chop, and then you can chop your sample. It's hard for people to understand how you would manually chop, even though you would do it like this right here. It's very simple to use. I mean, there's different sample modes that you have, like threshold chopping, you have regions chopping, you have BPM chopping as well. And those are all represented from the MPCs and standalone. But for most people, they will have to go through another step, and that is doing the exact thing that Serato Studio does much better. After chopping up your sample, you will have to convert your sample. So you're doing many other steps, and it could be a lot complex and a lot harder on people that are newcomers to the MPC software, and also turning them off from using anything else from Akai. While in something like Serato Studio, it's as easy as finding a sample, setting randomly. You can set your chops randomly inside of it. You can select all, delete all your chops right here, set some more chops, and then you can go into set endless slicers and stuff like that. Not to mention, it has everything time stretched perfectly off top with all the other details in front of you, like BPM and your scale that you need to use, or the root key of the sample itself. The MPC software definitely has all of that, but it's also more steps that you have to follow, or you need to understand the software itself. But if you're panicking and you're wondering, am I panning Akai? No, I'm not. Matter of fact, you can search my YouTube channel for all of this information because I broke it down many a times on this very channel. But we're not arguing that here. We're arguing ease of use. And Serato Studio has them beat 100 times fold on that.
Hey, you getting real disrespectful.
Matter of fact, they have them beat on another aspect, and that is stem separation. Now let's go back into the MPC software. I'm gonna go ahead and clear all these chops and go back into trim mode so we can go and do some creating of some stems where you have vocals, bass, drum, and others. It's similar to Serato Studio, which has the exact same features and functionalities because they both use the exact Z-plane algorithm. However, it is night and day.
I don't want peace. I want problems always.
When you're in the MPC software creating stems, once you get into the stem separation in itself, you can pick out any of these right here and omit them out. So if you want to not get rid of vocals or not get rid of something, all you have to do is this. However, you still got to place it in the program. So if I was to place it in the program 1 and hit do it, it will go through its process. And the process in itself is different depending on how long the sample is. And trust me when I say this, and I'm saying it without any bias, you guys know I love the MPC software, MPC stuff altogether. It is a much longer process and I'm still waiting right now. Just observe the time in the background. You can see the time 12:32. Yeah, it's still going right now. I even go to this scene so you can see that I'm not even like capping or trying to attack a Kai. And even with that, after the process is done, I don't really have easy access to controlling the stems or the chops. They're in one pad, all of the stuff right here, I play it, and then I have to go and find the level of each individual part. And then I have to go into this screen right here just to play it. And then you'll see, you see what I'm saying? Like, and I can't even chop the individual slices or whatever, or control whatever, just off the strength of this screen. And that is kind of complicated and difficult for, you know, the average person to understand those aspects of what you're doing. Like I'm still having difficulty right here. Now I'm playing the track in the background, and yes, we are going to compare them together so we can hear it. But you can see the difficulty between the two. While I will admit the flexibility between you controlling your chops and chopping up whatever phrase is a little bit limited, you still can duplicate. And you can just press play, let it play, then let it render. It's rendering in real time, which is something I would expect it to do. If I wanted to remove the drums, I can remove the drums. If I wanted to remove the bass, I can remove the bass. Also, if I wanted to control the loudness of the stems or whatnot, I can go into the encoder mode, go to the deck parameters, go to deck stems, and control that, making it overall easier and accessible to newcomers and to anybody that's an advanced user. Having the simplicity off top makes it even better when you have the experience with your Groovebox, DAW, or whatever they want to call their stuff. Now, I must be honest with you, I have been using the MPC software. They're already in MPC 3 software. However, it's in beta, but I must note the changes. The main one being the UI, but they switched from using programs to using tracks that is similar to the decks in Serato Studio. However, it's still about the same kind of workflow, which makes sense and kind of hinders Akai in the sense because they'll probably piss off everybody else if they changed it too much. And trust me when I say this, the MPC community does not like change whatsoever. They're still fighting about if 2.0 is better than 3.0. And bruh, I'm gonna tell you right now, 3.0 is much better, but dude, you see where I'm getting at? Yeah. So I left a lot off the table when it comes to the MIDI controllers because they're MIDI controllers. It's all about the software in itself. And I think that Serato SLAB has the better software right now, while the MPC Studio has, you know, fairly good software that you can use as someone that's experienced. But do you really want to get the experience while you have better accessibility with SLAB and Serato Studio versus something that's a little bit more intuitive? However, you have to invest more time in getting good at it. So it boils down to really easy to assess with lack of tools when it comes to audio editing within the software versus the MPC Studio, where it has all of the features that many of the MPC users want, but could turn off the newcomer. And that is something that Akai has been trying to tackle without pissing people off. And good luck with that. good luck with that. Our community is rabid hounds when it comes to the software, the hardware, whateverware, bruh. I kid you not. And I definitely want to ask the question to you guys. How do you feel about this video? Did it help you? For all the people that are newcomers in the space of Serato SLAB and might be thinking about getting the MPC Studio, how do you feel? Now, one thing I will tell you as someone that is an experienced MPC user, I would think that you guys would think that the standalone experience is much different in the regard that it's right in your face. Not to mention, if you are used to the standalone workflow and you attach it to your computer, you get more accessibility with VST plugins and so forth, which Serato does have compatibility with VST plugins. It's just hard to compare the two without pointing out the fact that Serato SLAB or Serato Studio, both of them are easy to use, easier to use than the MPC Studio and the MPC software.